Hello there guys, Daniel Childs back here again for my team selector ahead of the game against Southampton tomorrow in the Premier League. 3 p.m. kickoff at Stamford Bridge. It's a tense game for Chelsea, it really is. Even if it is coming up against an opponent who are currently without a permanent manager, bottom of the Premier League, lost 9 of their last 10 Premier League games. It's a team Chelsea absolutely should be putting away with ease. But given all the circumstances of this season, given the form of Chelsea in recent weeks and most of the season as well, not many people would put firm money on Chelsea doing the job, or at least doing the job very comfortably. So it's a big test, and I think that it's a test of Chelsea's mentality to go out there and put all of those worries to bed and go out there and comfortably put in a performance, an assured performance, but also a productive performance where Chelsea can show they do have a bit of an end product. Even if, Chelsea are expected to beat Southampton tomorrow, if Chelsea win 3-4-0, I think most people, especially outside of Chelsea, will shrug their shoulders, but that it still will be an important win for Chelsea because they have to start getting some results. These players have to start showing an end product to kind of really get this season into some sort of flow and positive mood before the end of it. So going to look at Southampton, obviously going to look at the team news from Graham Potter's press conference and then give you my predicted lineup for the game tomorrow. If you're new around here, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss any of the uploads on the channel. If you're listening on the podcast feed, thank you so much for tuning in. Son of Chelsea is a part of the 90 Min podcast network. But let's look at Southampton firstly. As I've already mentioned, lost 9 of their last 10 Premier League games. It's funny, when I did the Borussia Dortmund preview on Tuesday and I did sort of the last 5 graphic, if you are listening on the podcast, the graphic I have up in front of me is looking at Southampton's last lineup and looking at their last 5 games, and the form table for Borussia Dortmund was all green. There's a little bit of green. There's one win in the last 5 for Southampton, but it has been a very, very bleak season for Southampton. And of course, no permanent manager now. They sacked Nathan Jones after only 95 days in charge. That was after sacking Ralph Hasenhüttl. Jones didn't have the impact that I think that the club hoped he would after the World Cup. It hasn't worked there. It's been a bad relationship and it's ended now, and the search for the next manager goes on because it seemed like Jesse Marsch was going to take over after being sacked by Leeds. I think it was last week. And I know a lot of Chelsea fans on social media, when they saw the news about Nathan Jones and then saw the news around Jesse Marsch, is like the curse of facing the new manager bounce. But that isn't the case now. So Ruben Selles is taking temporary charge for Southampton for the foreseeable until they find that permanent head coach. But, you look back to the reverse fixture all the way back in August when Thomas Tuchel was still Chelsea's head coach. A 2-1 defeat at St Mary's with Romeo Lavia, a player that Chelsea reportedly were interested in, scored a brilliant goal. And I think it was Armstrong who scored the winner that night. A bleak night for Chelsea, and we've had quite a few, but it was a very different time, I think, for Southampton. They had all these young players that they'd invested in over the summer, and there was a sense that, sure, they could be inconsistent, but there's still talent within there. But it just has not worked out at all. It's been a spiral down. And at the moment, they are facing relegation to the Championship, the first time since 2012. So it's been a long time in the Premier League, but that model of investing in young players, you think all the way back to Mauricio Pochettino and Ronald Koeman and some of the players they have had over the years. Very difficult to keep that track record going, but it does feel like one of these clubs that has kind of lost their way a little bit behind the scenes of being sort of talked about as a smart club, of investing properly, of having a good academy set up, of integrating those players into the first team. And it just seems like things haven't clicked, and it's not like there's no talent within this squad. It's just it's one of those teams that could be sucked down into the Championship, and that's obviously going to have serious repercussions for Southampton as a club. So they go into this game with barely any confidence, and last weekend's result kind of showed it in performance. I mean, comical in the last 10 minutes, up a man against Wolves who aren't brilliant themselves, don't score a lot of goals themselves. Jan Bednarek with one of the worst own goals you're going to see, just kind of compounded the problems for Nathan Jones, and losing that game was massively demoralising. And so they come to Stamford Bridge maybe with feelings of just trying to keep the score down, but as we know of Chelsea, it's not the Chelsea of 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. They may look to kickstart their season as well, but it's a team absolutely Chelsea should be favourites to beat. Going into the team news from Graham Potter's press conference, mostly positive. Raheem Sterling obviously had a knock before the West Ham game, wasn't involved at the London Stadium, and then wasn't involved against Borussia Dortmund, but it seems like he could be in a squad to face Southampton tomorrow, which is good. Ben Chilwell had a knock and came off against Borussia Dortmund in midweek. It seems like he's going to be fit again, which is positive, because that'd be a real shame if he gets back into the team. He has I thought a decent showing against Dortmund, and then he's back on the sideline, so hopefully he will be involved. On top of that, we've also got Wesley Fofana now back in training, was on the bench in midweek. Denis Zakaria, Mateo Kovacic, a lot of players starting to get back from injury, and apart from the Champions League squad, we've also got now Benoit Badiashile obviously available for the Premier League, Noni Madueke, David Datro Fofana, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, who I suspect won't be involved tomorrow, but he is also available for selection if Potter feels it is necessary. So let's go into my predicted 11. A 4-2-3-1. We're not changing things that radically at all with this 11, and it's looking at the performance in midweek that I still think was positive, and that Chelsea created a lot of good opportunities, and I still don't think it was a bad performance. It was just bad in front of goal, which cost Chelsea dearly. But there are tweaks I'm going to make, 3 tweaks in my opinion, for players I'm going to bring back in. So Kepa in goal, back 4. If Ben Chilwell's fit, have him starting once again. Benoit Badiashile. Koulibaly had a solid evening against Dortmund. For all the talk around him, I think he proved himself at least competent, but solid on the night for Chelsea, and I think that was a good step forward for him after a lot of criticism in recent months. But I still think Benoit Badiashile has done enough to retain his place for recent performances. Thiago Silva, Reece James, midfield 2, Kovacic. There's a lot of options here. You can for players who have been fit, match fit. We've got Conor Gallagher, Carney Chukwuemeka, Mason Mount, maybe if you're going for more of a 4-3-3. But I'm going to give it to Ruben Loftus-Cheek because I just felt Ruben really asserted himself well in that second half against Borussia Dortmund. I've seen articles since saying that Jude Bellingham dominated the midfield, and I completely disagree. And I think that Ruben was, out of the two actually, of Enzo and him, I think was actually a little bit better. Ruben really asserted himself well and showing himself again to be quite a valuable player for Chelsea. So based on all those levels, like form, attributes, players who I think are doing well at the moment, I think that Ruben may keep his place. But you have got Denis Zakaria hopefully ready to come off the bench, Mateo Kovacic too, which is a real positive at this time of the season. The three behind the striker, Mykhailo Mudryk, Joao Felix and Noni Madueke. I think you can kind of go 50-50 with Hakim Ziyech and Noni Madueke. If Raheem Sterling is back fit, is he going to start the game instantly? I'm not entirely sure if he would. And Noni Madueke, I think, had some really decent moments against West Ham. Mykhailo Mudryk hasn't quite lived up to that hype, unsurprisingly, that we had obviously when we saw his cameo at Anfield last month. But I still think there are flashes of a really raw player, and I just want to see Ben Chilwell and Mudryk play together a lot more. I just think that Chilwell, I always say this, I think is such a smart fullback / wing back, and I think he makes runs that for a player like Mudryk can be really, really helpful. He can make an inward run if he needs to. He can go on the overlap, and I think that could cause real problems to a Southampton team who may be sitting deep, and you need to open up space. And I think with a lot of these new players, you want to get them integrated. You want to give them more opportunities, and I think Mudryk is one of those. If it isn't Mykhailo Mudryk, then yeah, maybe Raheem Sterling plays on the left of attack, or maybe Mason Mount. I think Mason Mount came off the bench for Mudryk in midweek. But I'm not taking away Joao Felix and Noni Madueke. I want to see a bit more of David Datro Fofana as the starting striker. I still think this is unlikely, to be honest. There are factors, beyond just me thinking that he is a more suitable striker, and I'd like to see Chelsea invest time into Fofana for the rest of the season. But it's a big game for Chelsea, big pressurized games where there's an expectation to win, and he is a raw player. But I'm looking at what Chelsea lacked, which was a finishing touch in midweek. And as well, at times when you do have those wide threats of Reece James and Ben Chilwell bombing down those flanks and getting a lot of territory, when we're putting in balls and I'm not seeing a player make a run towards it, another sort of consistent frustration at Chelsea, I'm looking at players of more natural instincts who are going to make that run. And I think Fofana is more likely at times than, say, Kai Havertz. Kai Havertz, I think, had a good link up with Joao Felix in the first half of Wednesday's game, but I think fading in the second, in my opinion, and still isn't providing the end product that I think we desperately need from that position. So it'd be a big call. I don't think Aubameyang's going to be starting. I mean, it would be for the narrative for Aubameyang to start and score tomorrow based on all the stuff that was spoken about in midweek, but maybe we'll see Fofana. But I still think that a lot of people would still think Kai Havertz, but I would like to see Fofana be given a start sooner rather than later, because you've brought in these young players and Fofana's one of them. And we were speaking in Let's Talk Chelsea yesterday about, Ivan Toney or strikers that Chelsea could buy in the summer. I think at least for the rest of this season, what's the harm in trying Fofana as a player up top for Chelsea and potentially uncovering someone? It's not uncovering because we bought him from Mod, but it's uncovering an option that maybe you didn't think was going to be ready, right now or could offer value right now, and maybe Fofana could offer that for Chelsea. Let me know your lineups in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this preview and listen to it as well. You can follow me on Twitter at SonOfChelsea, and I will see you again very soon. All the best.